Awesome. Welcome, everyone. We're here again. Our first official session of After Hours for week two. Um, if there's anybody out there, can we start flooding the comments? I'm definitely sure that we have some early. But yeah, it's exciting. Like we're essentially halfway through the program, and it's crazy because it feels like we literally just started yesterday, but we've gone through like 6 sessions. But yeah, we're definitely gonna see it through, and we're gonna have fun while we're doing it. So, excited, and in a few minutes, we're going to introduce the speaker, give him a chance to say a few words about himself, and then we'll get right into the business of today. All right, I'm starting to see a few people showing up. Welcome, Niat. Shouts to you, Kemi. My name is Prodigy. My name hasn't changed. DSA, who is supposed to be my co-host, is not available today because he's having a bit of a health challenge. So he says he might join, but let's not count on it. So just send some love to DSA wherever you are. Uh, but yeah, I'm very excited about today's session. I'm excited because I'm just going to sit here and learn as much as possible because the person that we're talking to is someone who you would say has achieved like mastery in his craft. I don't want to get too much into it because I want him to say it himself. But we're speaking to Funfere Koroye, also known as FK. Anybody who is in tech social media, as far as like Africa is concerned, even globally, if your eyes are on the African tech media, you definitely would have come across FK or FK's work sometime over the last few years. But yeah, he's a dope guy. He's a good friend of mine as well. So I'm happy that he accepted to be here to talk to us today. So yeah, let's get started. Let's get started. All right, let's flood the comments. I see. Please, let's keep the energy high today because, like, I promise you, this person that we're talking to is an interesting guy. So, if you give him lovely energy, he's gonna replicate it back to you. So, let's just keep the comment section on fire. Let's give feedback every single time, and feel free to stop him or stop me at any point, if you want to ask a question. But yeah, without taking too much time, let's get started. The official session of week two, the second session, FK, industrial product designer, startup founder, and amazing creative. Welcome, FK. You have the stage.
For the intro. So right now, what can everyone see? Like,
I can see your face. I can see a your screen, a corner of your screen being shared. But
okay,
guys in the floor, what can you guys see? Let's respond.
just want to make sure, just want to see what everyone is seeing before I start jumping right into it. Yeah, I should
Yeah, I
be
think you're
fine.
good.
I'm good, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. This is, I guess I'll say, I'll show my sort of like portfolio. So far so good. This is the most updated one. Um, I have been, wow, I've been in this field for close to a decade. I just want to give you a little bit of background, right? So I started out with this question we're all asked. Most of us were asked in secondary school or in our homes. What do you want to be when you grow up, right? So I answered it quite plainly. You know what? I want you guys to see me as I'm talking. So I answered this question quite plainly. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it was, I want to be an inventor, which, you know, in Christ Redeemer's College, Shagamu, in Ogun State, is not the answer that most of them were expecting to hear. You know, teachers and what have you. Even at the time, my parents, it sounded like such a strange thing for a 13-year-old to say. But I was watching, or we were all watching pretty much the same kind of cartoons, movies, TV shows, and yeah, we'll see the shows about the doctors, we'll see the shows about the lawyers, we'll see the shows about the people working in banks, but somehow the shows about inventors and creators just like completely skipped on those job roles. And I think it was mostly due to the fact that nobody that looked like us had been in those spaces at that time. So, I mean, this led me to where I am today. I mean, as it stands, I am a recipient of the Global Talent Visa from Tech Nation. Um, I think the talent visa is probably the most like currently in the world, the most um, effective way to gauge someone's ability in their field. I would say it's mostly a visa for people, immigrants. It's mostly an immigrant visa, but the top three recipients of the visa are Indians, Americans, and Nigerians. So I'm one of the recipients. My areas of focus are fast-moving commercial goods, but I've done work in femtech, footwear, and furniture. Um, wow, from the start, from the very beginning, I think I would say my first ever sort of degree was something called design and technology, um, and that introduced me to the very basics of what most people today know as design, tech, creativity. And then I studied industrial design as a bachelor's degree. Um, Industrial design is probably one of the less known design faculties in Nigeria, but very much popular everywhere else in the world because manufacturing is what runs most countries. Unfortunately, not what runs Nigeria. And then for my master's, I studied hardware product design. The reason I didn't add the product in the hardware design is because I started to realize that some recruiters were confusing the actual product design with the current one that's been mistitled. So please, today should be the last time you ever use the term product design for UX UI. UX UI is a completely different field. Product design is for hardware. But I know that debate is still growing. We'll get to it later.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you, please don't forget, you have to get deeper into that and unpack, what that
Yeah, I
means
will.
for
I'll
us.
definitely unpack that when I get to all this. So work
Awesome.
experience. Wow, I think there's like some work experience missing from this. The reason I made it this short was just because I don't want to go too far into all my work experience, but I will say that my first work experience, that's when I was an intern, was in China. So I worked in China for a footwear company, in a factory in China. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. But after that, I worked ironically, in a secondary school as a teacher teaching D&T. Um, this was a job I actually applied for because I was actually interested more in teaching than mainstream 9 to 5 work. While there, I actually got poached, if that's the English, yes, by Technomobile. So some of you on this stream should know who Technomobile is. At the time, Technomobile was looking to start a R&D lab in Lagos, and I was the person that led that lab at the time. So after that, I've worked at Dando's Alpha Sports Sponge Design and a host of other companies, mostly on a freelance basis. Some of my notable projects, which I'm going to go through, are in more recent times an intercom system, a smart meter, which I actually was trying to build as a startup, but it failed woefully. But we did manage to raise some funding, seed round, just to sort of try and get it off the ground. I think this would be my favorite project to date because it was my first real international hardware design engineering project. So Jazza Energy, if you guys are on your computer, you can look them up real quick. I mean, a Google search will show that I was involved, and not only that, but like the impact of Jazza Energy as a company. Um, so funny story about this Jazza Energy, and this is something for all of you to note. Do not play on the internet. You know, I know a lot of people log into their phones every day and just catch crews on Twitter and play into banter on Yaba Left. But like this job, I got this job on LinkedIn. And when I say I got this job on LinkedIn, I didn't apply for it. Jazza Energy Googled African industrial designers, and my profile came up, and they went on my LinkedIn, because in my LinkedIn, in my bio, I have all my interest areas written in there. This is something, you know, I always tell people when I look at their LinkedIn, put your interest areas in your bio, because it pops up on SEOs, pops up on search engines. So they sent me a message on LinkedIn, and they said to me, hey, Funfere, we want to employ you. In fact, I wish I could pull up that very first message I received from Sebastian. So, you know, they said they wanted to employ me, wanted to have a conversation with me. And, you know, at first I was like, we're talking about 2016, 2015, 2016. So I was like, I'm not really taking this message too seriously, because I'm like, who are these guys? Because we've all gotten a bit of spam on LinkedIn, a bit of spam in our emails. But they said they emailed me, they texted, they sent me a message on Instagram, they sent me on LinkedIn. So they were actually chasing me. So it's a Canadian company based in Tanzania. And after one video call between me and two Canadian guys, they put me on a plane to Tanzania, to Zanzibar. And this is where this project took off. This project took off on remote islands or remote areas in Zanzibar. That was their test pilot phase. And I did the design engineering for this product, which is not only on the market in Tanzania, but also on the market in Nigeria. So at the time, they were not even looking at Nigeria as a market in 2016. But today, they're currently piloting in Ogun State. So this opportunity came to me because of my LinkedIn account. And also on my LinkedIn, just to further, in addition to putting in my interest areas, which is just part one, there were projects, both client-based and conceptual. Any small time you have, do conceptual projects, any small time. Do case studies. These things count for something. This project, Equalizer, again, something you can look up to, myequalizer.info. This is, I think, a project from last year, one of my most recent. And this was a referral. This is a product that was fully built. I actually built this out from concept, from sketch. The client is a WNBA player who wanted to make a therapy device. And I'll dive deeper a bit more into the process it takes to get from this sketch to this real product here. These renders are fantastic, right? But fuck the renders. And I often say this to creators because there's so much beauty in creating really shiny objects on a screen, but execution is everything. Our bike, some of you should know our bike. I was literally, when the CEO started the company, I designed the bicycles from scratch. And they ended up raising a decent amount of rounds and piloting all over campuses in Nigeria. Not all of them, but a good number of them. This was a conceptual project that I actually ended up making in real life. Another thing that I will touch on later, but sometimes you get these strong convictions for ideas. And my idea was very simple. It was fires in Nigerian homes, lead to loss of life, loss of property, and also people can't tell whether there's a gas leak or carbon monoxide leak. So my concept was just an adapter, wall adapter like product that was cheap, easy, and just made noise when there was a gas leak. Another part of the project was I added this USB port there that you see so that it could also double as a charger for your phone. Now, this product never made it to market. I conceptualized it, I made a prototype, tried to pitch it around, and no one fucked with it. Um, I think it might have to do with just the state of things at the time what I was trying to pitch. But I think where my last project, or second to last, before okay. So I know how I've listed this out. So this is a project I was working on last year. This is also a personal project I was trying to pitch to get funding. GZ and I are actually rubbing minds on this at the moment. Again, I was just looking at problems in Nigeria and trying to see like how I could solve for them. And one of the biggest problems in Nigeria is actually maternal and infant death. And then, last but not least, this is one of my like sort of really early projects. I'm talking about way early in my career. It started up conceptual, ended up being real, got a bunch of press, but never got any funding behind it. And I'll get into that also, sort of that line between good ideas and scalable ideas. These are some of the awards I've received to date. Lords, Future Africa, Tech Nation. I'm just really here, just hyping myself up. I apologize. And okay, well, I'm not going to get into this reaching part. But my website is funferekoroye.com. If you guys want to have a look at it, please feel free. So I think right now I've just gone through sort of the technical side of my portfolio. So I'm going to go into a more creative, more, I guess I'll say, product side of my portfolio, which is footwear design. So I've done a lot of footwear design work. It was sort of my original entry into the market. This is a product I developed last year, personal, and again, it was just something that was.
Sorry to cut you, FK, but I don't think your screen is
It's not
you're showing the
sure.
right. Yeah, no, it's not showing. We're just
You're right,
saying
you're right,
your
you're right,
headshot.
you're right.
Perfect
So can you
now.
guys
Thank
see
you.
the big screen now?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, so now I'm just sharing the other side of my portfolio, the footwear side. What just happened? Oh, did you just close? Uh,
Too much fire, man. It was too hot for the browser to handle.
it just no. Sorry guys, give me a second. I don't like
No
it.
problem, no problem. Take your time. How's everyone doing, guys? Let's check in. I know a lot of people have joined since the last time we checked in, but feel free to tap in, say hello if you're new. If you're trying to understand what we're doing here, just drop your questions in the comments, and yeah, we'll get to you
Who does
shortly.
it close it?
All right,
Okay,
FK, I
guys.
can see
So
your
right
screen.
now, anyone that's new, hi, my name is FK, design and technology guy. I just showed the technology part of my portfolio. This is the design side. This is a personal project from last year. Ended up being a collaboration with a brand in the US. Um, it literally, I kid you not, this came to me in a dream. Um, I just knew that I wanted to make an African shoe. That's always been one of my goals, but I didn't want to use Ankara. I despise Ankara. Um, and I was like, what can I do? What can I do? One day I woke up and I was like, I want to design women's heels, and that's how this came to be. And just to put some numbers behind stuff like this, right? I actually got seed funding from someone in the fashion industry in Nigeria to make this happen, and it cost me £15,000 to make these shoes. Um, I think one of the most difficult things is raising money for hardware, raising money for ideas. But if you can lay out your ideas, this is where the idea started. This is all they saw. This is all they saw. All they saw were schematics, right? All they saw were an explanation of the idea, but the way I laid it out let them understand the product that we're looking at. Now, some of you have great ideas, but you have terrible delivery. The delivery has to be just as good as the concept you have in mind. Because what some people have that you don't have is delivery. That's it. And that's why sometimes you see on the market people with subpar ideas, but they raise money. Actually, I want to call them subpar. You see people with ideas maybe similar to yours, and you're like, oh my God, I thought of that. But maybe your delivery was off. These are other projects in my portfolio. Um, wow. Okay, I have to tell you the story of this one. Okay, let me do this one first. So this also was one of my personal ideas. For some reason, I've not taken this to market yet, even though the demand was semi interesting in my circle and my social media, but I've kept this to one corner somewhere. And I have a lot of projects like that. Projects I've kept to one corner. So I want to tell you guys the story of JVP, right? Hopefully everyone can see my screen. JVP. This was an Australian guy in Australia that I came across his brand. At the time, he was not making any shoes, right? I designed these shoes you see here in the corner. I sent it to him as a presentation, a pitch, and I said, "Hi, Jason. I want to design footwear for your brand. Um, my name is, and you know, this is what I do for a living. I think a footwear collection would make sense, right? We made three colorways: blue, black, and red, and we never made that white one. And Jason, who didn't know me from anywhere, had not met till today, agreed to listen to me. Now, some of you might have great ideas, but the truth is that maybe it's not you that's supposed to bring that idea to life. Maybe it's somebody else. Um, so don't be scared to pitch to complete strangers, but you have to make sure your presentation is on point because people are always looking for new things to bring to market. So this is some work I did for Dandos. I created this entire split sole design for them from scratch. It has a patent on it. Um, one of the great things I liked about this company was they took almost every feedback I gave them. And one of the greatest feedback I gave them was don't buy any prints on the market, make them from scratch. Um, they had a pretty decent run until COVID, and then the company sort of failed. Um, so this was my major input in the company was design engineering files for how the shoe looked, how it worked, all the materials. Um, and then this was my first ever footwear design job was for Jump Japan. And Jump story is very similar to JVP. I just sent a cold email to this company that I liked the work they were doing at the time. And the owner asked to meet me. I went to his shoe shop. We had a chat, and he said to me, "Can you work in China?" He was one that actually gave me the opportunity in China. And I said, "Yes, why not?" And he was like, "Okay, I will write you an invitation letter and, you know, go get a visa and come meet me there." Um, it was a very interesting time in my career because at the time I didn't actually want to design shoes, which is another lesson you have to learn in your career. Sometimes you have to do some shit you don't really want to do, or maybe you think you want to do just to get the ball rolling. I think Jeezy is actually proof of this. Jeezy could have been boy director today, but he went down another path. But the experience he had before is not wasted experience. It's still part of his journey and his story. So like, even though I've done a lot of footwear design stuff and I'm now mostly 99% in the tech industry doing really technical stuff, this was still part of a learning experience because no knowledge is wasted. No job, no pay is too small. And if you don't get exactly what you want, get creative and find something else on a tangent. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to this StreamYard while I upload while I upload more things. Yes, I don't see things.
That's crazy, man.
I don't see things.
Bro, like I believe that we can actually just go through the entire session, just going through your portfolio, and we probably will finish. While you
Yeah,
upload
so
the next one, let's actually hear like your personal experience, right? So we saw your CV, we saw your
yeah,
education, but like I'm sure
yeah,
there's so many stories wrapped around inside that, right? So can you
For
paint us
sure.
a
Yeah, yeah.
picture?
Ask me some questions, bro. I'm
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Just paint us a picture from, because I grew up in Nigeria. I'm sure almost 90% of people on this session right now, they obviously are either in Nigeria or they understand, how Nigeria works, right? So in terms of like just growing up in a system that is not usually like favorable to you, especially when you have divergent ideas, right? So, for some people, they are privileged enough to come from certain kinds of families or to grow up in certain kinds of communities that support them. In your case, like, what was the situation? How did you say you were an inventor and actually become one, right? Obviously, you've told us in all of these ways, but like, what
Yeah,
battles did you
yeah.
fight? Did you try to go into a Nigerian uni first? Like, how did that
Yeah, all
happen?
right.
And
So,
like,
I'm not gonna bullshit anybody on this live, right? The first thing I'll say is I was adamant about what I wanted to do. Um, I'll first start off by saying, like, I'm covered in tattoos from my fingers all the way to my chest. I've always sort of known who I wanted to be in my head, the kind of person I wanted to appear to be. And I've known this since 13 years old, which is almost, I don't know, very scary. In fact, my parents took me to Mountain of Fire for deliverance because I was already showing early stages of madness from 13 years old. Yeah. So again, like they were asking me, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? I said, I want to be an inventor. They didn't want to agree. My parents were like, no, you're writing Jam and YX soon. There's no inventor in Nigerian university, right? So I said, what does it take to get into a university in the US? You know, oh, really good SAT scores, scholarship, this one can you call admission letter, all of that. So I said, okay, since the degree I want to do is not in Nigerian universities, and also just a point of correction, there is industrial design in some Nigerian universities, but no disrespect to these professors and these teachers, I know they're doing their best, but the curriculum is nonsense. So I looked into two of these universities. One is Futa, and I can't remember the second one. Um, and I just knew that I was like, okay, I need to learn this from the very best. Now, I will digress for a second on how to further your education without having to step outside of Nigeria or having to step outside of your budget. So, actually, funny enough, this is something I don't probably talk about. I actually applied to both Design and Technology School and MIT. Um, and I got into both, but I decided not to go to MIT because it was mechanical engineering that my father was forcing on my head. And I believe that I was like, we have too many mechanical engineers in Nigeria and nothing works. So I felt like, let me do something and see if maybe from my angle things could, make a difference. Now, I think it's important to note that wanting to do something is very different from actually doing it. So when I started the degree in the US, it was hell because I had zero foundation for the degree I was starting, um, which is where, which is what actually led me to, if any of you were here when I was talking about my portfolio, which led me to wanting to teach in secondary school because there's actually zero foundation from secondary school on a lot of fields. Almost any STEM field has zero foundation in secondary school. STEM, as most people should know, is science, technology, engineering, and math. The only thing we sort of focus on in Nigeria is math, sort of briefly. With these math teachers, I always slap your head and say study math. But science, dead. Technology, dead. Engineering, dead. Um, so when you deal with not having any base and just passion, there is a huge learning curve. But I will say this much about teachers. Teachers are actually one of the biggest root causes of poorly performing minds. And as some of you know, Nigerian lecturers are not exactly the most fantastic. There are some great ones, no disrespect to the good ones, but there are some really terrible ones. And I think these Oyibo teachers I had, one of the brilliant things that they did was that they helped me to understand how to process ideas. Now, it is no mistake, and really honestly, think about it, it is no mistake that some of the most innovative companies come from the US. It has nothing to do with the landmass, America. It has more to do with the way of thinking. Um, yeah, I designed the Wilson's Lemonade bottle. Yeah, the very first one. Yeah, yeah. Me and the artist named Renike. At the time, Renike was not even very popular, but now she is even more popular than myself. So yeah, humble beginnings. Anyways, we'll get to that later. So I think one of the things I would say that some of us here we're going to be parents soon. I don't know how young the youngest person is, but I know I'm going to be a parent soon. One day, I don't know, maybe. And then a good number of us will be parents definitely sometime in the future. Please and please and please, I beg you, do not be your own parents. Do not be a stifling figure in your kids' lives, because one of the things teachers do in the US is not stifle you. Anything goes, anything is allowed, as long as you can explain it and you can make it happen. That is why we use, right now, I use this example of this software we're on. It's Oyibo man that created it. I bet someone from the US, because they are encouraged to create and think, right? Um, so fast forward to 4 years in university in the US and really learning all these things. How did I end up in China from the US? One very simple reason, outside of the box thinking. I said to myself, if I stay in the US and work, I will just be another industrial designer. So I said to myself, how can I have an edge? One thing came to mind for me. The best way to have an edge is to go to the source of how things are made. And that's my personal field. It could be different for everyone else's. So I made my way to China to learn how things are made. Everybody probably has one of these, right? This is an iPhone. If you peel the skin back of your case, you're going to see developed in Apple, California, made in China. My MacBook, I lifted up the same thing. Your jacket, you look on the inside, the same thing. Why do you think it is that almost 99% of things in the world are made in China? Forget this stupid stigma people try to put on China. China actually makes some of the most technologically advanced products in the world. And this is something I learned from school. So education and insight let me understand where I needed to go with my career. So even though my degree says industrial design, most of my career has actually been spent on R&D, research and design, research and development. And I actually found a stronger passion there than in actual design itself. Because what I realized as a designer was when you're done designing, that was the end. Like there was a curve, it was great, you got all this feedback, and then you submitted it, and that was it. You didn't know what happened, how it came to be. So I lived in China, I would say, for about 4 or 5 years before I moved to Nigeria. Back to Nigeria, and it was hands down some of the best experience I've ever had. And the important thing for me while being in China was assimilating a different culture. And with assimilating this different culture, I also assimilated work styles, I also assimilated the way things are done, I also assimilated just difference in opinions and difference in approaches to like my field as a whole. If you are, watching this live video right now, I don't know what stage you are in your career, but I can tell you that opening your mind to other ways of thinking is one of the best things you can do for yourself. If currently you're in one very small bubble of, Nigerian Designers Council, whatever, get out of there for a second, go somewhere else, see what's happening in Japan, see what people are doing in India. You're not the only people in the world. 7 billion people on earth, only 200 million of them are Nigerians. So which means that you are within a minority in the grand scheme of things. See other points of view, see other design styles, see other creative styles, because this will help you understand how to create better.
Amazing, awesome. Let me jump in for a second. I think another thing I
Sure.
want to add is like don't be overwhelmed by how big something looks, right? Especially when you're looking at it from the outside, right? And we talked about this last week when we talked about models. A lot of times, like the map of something is not the thing, it's not the reality of it, right? Sometimes it's just used to describe it. And a lot of the things that make us feel like things are out of reach from us are usually not the case, right? You if you actually take a few steps inside, you realize that this is actually something that you can achieve, because here you are, like, we're in a space with somebody who has come from the same place we've come from. And even though, there's a lot of trajectories and a lot of variables that lead to, where he's at right now, it should show you that it is actually possible, right? And you can do it too. As a segue, I want to ask a question, right?
For
And this
sure.
is not just for myself, but for everybody. Like, I see a lot of like designs. I see a lot of like, because you said something earlier as well, right? Your idea may be dope, but the delivery of that idea sometimes is what limits it, right? So can
Yes.
somebody actually learn to be a better creator? And I'm not even talking about the technical sides of things. Like, can you become, so let's say for instance, I have no skill at, representing my ideas as sketches or technical drawing or anything like that.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And I know for a lot of people that they'll say, I don't know how to draw, so I can't be a designer. I don't know how to this, so I can't be that. I don't like, so in a space like design, in a space like development, whether that's hardware or software, is it something that can be learned, or do you have to be innately talented to be able
Okay,
to succeed?
so I'm glad you asked that question because one of my colleagues, I call him a colleague, started a company called Gravity Sketch. This is somebody I know very personally. Um, Sheyi Sosoya. And he set out to tackle this very question you're asking. Um, for anyone that has ever used Gravity Sketch, you would know what this program is. If you haven't, I would really suggest this software to every designer I know, especially if you are in sort of this XR space and interested in sort of the metaverse. So Gravity Sketch uses headset and controllers to allow you do 3D designs in free space. Um, so I can to answer your question directly, Cheesy, you do not need to know how to design to be a creator. Um, but you do need two things. You need soft skills and hard skills. And what do I mean by soft skills? An example of a soft skill obviously can be sketching, you know, but there's other types of soft skills. And those soft skills can be marketing, they can be, or what's known as commercial skills. It can be understanding how partnerships work, understanding SEOs, understanding fundraising. So there's all kinds of soft skills that actually help with the creative process. So you just need to understand the full value chain of what makes, for example, what brings these headphones to your table is more than just the person that designed it and the store that sold it. Um, so those soft skills, commercial skills, something I've learned here in Antler is you need to learn how to process them. Then there's hard skills. So hard skills are technical skills, and those skills can include learning about 3D design software, learning about machine learning and AI, learning about coding, learning about creating filters for XR experiences. So all these kinds of hard skills require zero talent. What they require is just interest level. Um, there's something we say in Nigeria that I dislike, which is that people are destined to do something. No one is destined to do anything. You can change your career today. If today you want to be a chef, you'll be a chef today. Repetitiveness creates talent. I 100% believe that. This is something I used to disagree with until I went to school in the US. I saw people go from year one being nonsense in their field to year four being hired by Nike. Because every day for 4 years, they did the same thing. And that trained their body to do that thing very, very well. Um, So yes, you might not. There's some fields that are sort of oxymoronic to what I'm saying, um, But there's also within those fields people that prove what I'm saying right. So yes, to be a musician, you have to sing very well. But as we all know, music doesn't just revolve around people that can sing very well. There's mumble rappers, there's performers, there's DJs that don't even utter a word, and then there's obviously, as we know, the classic Davido Burna Boy Wizkid argument, right? Each person has something they bring to the table, but each of them also has something that you could use to say, this person's not really a musician because maybe they don't play an instrument. This person's not really a musician because he can't dance. This person's not because he can't sing. But at the end of the day, what do all three of them have in common? Repetitiveness. 10 years plus of doing the same thing every day and saying this is the thing I want to do. So and the basketball player said this, he said, hard work beats talent 100% of the time. What he meant by that is that some people just think that because they are tall, they are good basketball players. And that's never the case. If you Google the average height of the NBA player, you'd be shocked. Most NBA players are sort of standard tall height. Most of them are not like giants as you would think. What all the solid NBA players have in common is hard work. And that's why one of the shortest basketball players in NBA history was 5'6", because he played the fuck out of that game. The point I'm trying to make is that do not let any sort of like immediate shortcomings stop you from getting into a field. People like me, I would say yes, I was a good artist in secondary school. You know, those innate abilities were there. But some of the guys I know today working as UX UI designers in booking.com did not take a lick of art and cannot draw to save their lives. What's the point I'm trying to make? UX UI design can be a skill for somebody that does not have any kind of artistic ability, but has built both a soft and hard skill. The soft skill, again, being like user research, the hard skill being knowing how to use Figma very well. I took a UX UI course, and I kid you not, Figma is one of the most difficult softwares I learned how to use from scratch. So there is nothing that is easy and just comes to people like that. Nothing. No matter how much people try to deceive you with. I started learning Figma 1 week ago. Don't believe all those people on Twitter. Those are the worst set of people. The ones that come and say they just started designing last week. No, nothing comes from nothing. I was telling Jeezy this last week. I said, if you've not put in at least a decade in your career, you can't say your profession is anything less than a decade is not a profession. You're still learning. You're still learning. We'll just call it work, 9 to 5. You put in a decade into something, you begin to understand how much hard work matters in building like a very successful talent. I'm trying to add up. 5'3", see that? I thought it was even 5'6".
Amazing.
See, so I was wrong.
Okay, cool. Um, I love what you said. FK, I have one question for you. Yeah, let's take a little bit back, and this is because of Okote's question, right? But I think that to be able to answer that question, we need to get to the fundamentals. So we've been throwing around a lot of words in this conversation, right? One of those words is product. I've heard the word software. I've heard the word hardware. I've heard the word research and development. I've heard the word UX, UI, and all of these things, right? And obviously, like from what I know, right, these are the elements of the cycle of a product, right? So can you even tell us first of all, like what is a product, right? So what's the difference
So
between someone
let
who's
me do that by sharing my screen and simultaneously talking about it.
for sure, go ahead, take your time.
Definitely. So I'm going to present something real quick for you guys, and that will also answer Okotie's question about
All right,
converting
bro,
conceptual design to actual products.
take it
Um,
away. But yeah, so what is a product and like at some
okay,
point,
so yeah, yeah. What is a product? That's such a tough one, my brother. What is a product? Shit. So let me start by before I go deep into Jazza Energy. What is a product? a product is anything, right? Product, and when I say anything, a piece of music is a product, um, a shoe is a product, a car is a product, Facebook is a product, right? A product is anything that an end consumer uses and was created by somebody for a certain function. So this is why when people say product designer and they assume that it's just UX UI guys, it really does piss me off. And I'll keep saying it because we really need to address that. Product design is the design of all kinds of products. Now, within product design is the umbrella. And you can then say, okay, what type of product designer are you? Hardware product designer, software product designer. You can even go deeper, shoe designer, sound designer, etc., etc. So to me, product is anything that solves a function for an end user. That's a product. Some products are mundane and some products are super functional. But I'm more on the super functional type of product. And using Jazza Energy as a case study, I think everybody should see my screen, right? Yes. So Jazza, when they reached out to me, this was their business model. They were selling rechargeable batteries as a service from hubs built in rural parts of Tanzania. So all of the hardware belonged to Jazza, and they did all of the charging for you. So when Jazza came to me, they were literally just selling batteries with screens attached to them, just to build an MVP. And I was to come in and change that into what you see today. Now, Okotie asked a question about like turning concepts into products, right? If you can't do something, find somebody that can. Because a lot of the times in the product design process, there are people that can do a large chunk of it, and there's people that need help. And this is where people like me typically come in. So if you have an idea and you don't know how to visualize it, go and pay somebody to visualize it. Because industrial designers actually have function in this life. We're here to help people visualize products. So from that stage came this stage, which is the design engineering stage. So I have both a industrial design degree and a design engineering degree. Both these fields teach you about conceptualizing ideas through sketches and then also through 3D. Now, I'm going to step back a bit. This used to be a very important part of the industry, but not so much anymore, because if you can sketch good, nobody gives a fuck. What people care about is if you understand three-dimensional objects, and my next slide, if you understand how things are made. There's two ways to know how things are made. You do research on what exists, or you have domain expertise. So this is an example of what I mean by understanding how things are made. So these are internal components of the product, the PCB board and the battery cells. So when you're developing a product, you have to also think about the inside, not just the outside. And the important thing with thinking about the outside and the inside is that you're able to communicate with factories clearly what you want. For example, saying you want a USB port, 6 mm jacks, you want a screen that shows battery level, you want vents for air, you want charging ports that connect directly to panels, you want a raised logo in a certain colorway, and you want it to be this size in relation to the person. Now, fun fact is, this was a render, right? And one of the beautiful things about renders is, as some of you know what renders are, is that it communicates concepts really beautifully in our industry as hardware designers. And it helps you to understand how real something can be. So I'm just taking you through really a 9-page document from idea to product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stray for a second and show you the final product in Nigeria, because I believe Jazza Energy posted a picture in Nigeria. I believe they did. I'm going to show you what the final product ended up looking like. Because one of the brilliant things with my field is sometimes you get it completely right and the product looks exactly how it's supposed to look. Um, and then other times you don't get it 100% right. So I'm going to share this tab. This is the product, in market, in use, real. Um, Currently, like I said, being piloted in Tanzania and in Ogun State, if I'm not wrong. There's my hand again. This was actually the first version of the design, but they didn't like it because it didn't work well with the users and the environment. Um, and then, this is the final product, right? So one of the important things with my field, or really, let me speak in general. One of the important things with designing a product is understanding two things, right? One is there is a huge difference between even making a well thought out render and then actually bringing it to life. Now, the reason the product went from this to what it is there is actually a cost issue, but funny enough, this product here, we actually ended up making it for Jazza in the end. Or well, Jazza ended up making it for themselves. I can find it, the image for you, but much later, that's right now. So a product, just to sort of round up before I move on to another slide, a product is anything. And when you are delivering a product, you have to know the user. Because if you do not know your user, it is difficult to create products that count.
Interesting. I want you to talk a little bit more about the user, right? Because um, from my experience, right, I know because I've been in product development, right, from the soft side for about maybe 3 years now, right? So definitely in the early stages. But what I've learned, and one of the myths that was busted for me in the early stages was because before I'm more interested in software. Obviously, let me just clarify what I mean by soft side. So software and extended reality. One of the myths in the early stages was like anybody who can code, anybody who can design, can make an app, right? And to a certain extent, that's true. But my thinking 3 years ago was that to be able to create the next Facebook or to be able to create the next Hopin, I just need to learn, JavaScript or something. But 3 years in, what I've learned is that the more important skill, right? Obviously, the technical side of creating things is important, but the most important skill is understanding the user and understanding how the thing you're creating solves their problems. And a lot of times it means going through every type of possibility out there in terms of what type of problem and how it can be solved. So talk to us about like how you think about users and what the
User,
process of
okay, so
creating.
I'm glad you mentioned user because this next slide or this next project really just dives into user more than anything else. Is it
Yeah.
wide enough? Because I got a complaint that I need to make it wider.
Can you make it bigger?
I'm trying to see how
I don't. It's not from the document. It's from the frame. So I
it's
think it
from
might
the
be the
frame. Okay, let me
yeah.
see if I can do. Can you
How
do
about
full
now?
screen? Can you do full screen with a tab?
Give it a shot. Let's see.
Let me see. Huh. I don't know. Present. Okay. I think did
Yeah,
that make a difference?
perfect.
Oh, okay.
It it does.
So Equalizer is one of the projects I worked on before joining Ankler. This lady in the WNBA in the US reached out to me through a referral. She wanted to design this therapy device. She had an idea, but she had no sketch, no nothing. And this is a perfect example of how words can turn into ideas and real products. So more recently, Equalizer got a grant from Pharrell Williams for as a Black innovator. Um, if my math isn't wrong, it should have been like $50,000 or $100,000, something like that. And this all started with a conversation, right? So users, one of the most important things to understand users is to first understand what they are using at the moment, right? So one of the first things I looked at in this project was who are the competitors. PowerDot, Compex, Hyperice, and Playmaker. I wanted to understand what they were giving already and what else needed to be given for Equalizer to be a much better product. Another thing you need to understand with users is design language. What do they want to see? What do they like? This is a common practice in industrial design, is putting together a mood board of visual cues that let you know what kind of design direction you want to take. So you don't want to do something too crazy, but you don't want to do something too simple, and this is what this mood board helps with. So even in the user phase, I did ideation, and this ideation is to let me understand where the device would sit on the human body and how the user would interact with it based on their anatomy. And one of the most important things with user is what's called product market fit, or in the case of hardware, it's just fit, ergonomics. So if you don't understand how your user will interact with something on themselves or their body in their hand, then you can't have a great product. And this is where we ended up with the product. And when I say I was responsible for 100% of this product, I was responsible for 100% of the product. The founder of the company literally just let me take the lead after realizing that she saw that I knew what I was saying and what I was doing. This product ended up having a version 2, which I might show later. But we first started off with just electric muscle stimulation, but then we ended up adding heating and cooling, which was like really difficult to add because no other TENS device on the market does heating and cooling simultaneously. So with users, you also have to understand how do they interact with your product. What is the user experience? Can a customer use your product without having the product be explained to them? I think most of us here use an app, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and none of us went through any tutorials really, because the app is intuitive, because the app was well designed and they went through what is called, the user experience and the user journey. This at this point are still all renders. I believe. Will I get to a page where it's no real thing on this one? Okay, I'm trying to see if I can pull up a real thing real quick. Equalize.
FK, someone's asking what this device does, like what the fits is.
Okay, that's a good question. Fantastic question. Wait, before I even answer, what do you think it does just by looking at it? Whoever asked, just
Guys, can we get some comments? So let's
yeah,
get
can I get some comments? What do you guys think this device does? Just by looking at it. What are the guesses saying? Because I can't tell. Oh wait, I need to go into comments. Anybody? Any guesses? No? No one is guessing? Everybody's quiet.
Someone said sensor. Somebody says I think is a heater.
Yeah, but
heater.
he's after the function. Okay, so since no one is answering, what this product does in essence is it helps with muscle healing for athletes and anybody that works out intensely. So essentially, it helps you to send electrical impulses through the body to reduce pain. So essentially, getting rid of using painkillers. Yes, sort of like a massage, but more on a nerve level. So no vibration of any kind, zero vibration. There's an app that it connects to. So we had a much deeper version of this, but this was sort of the first delivery to the client, just to let them understand what the direction we're thinking of for the product. And the beautiful thing with my profession sometimes is I design things that end up looking exactly like this. You know what? Actually, I can show you the website of the company. That should help better. Can everyone
Perfect.
see it?
No, it's still the old screen.
Oh, it's still screen. No, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, it's switched up there.
Okay. So it's a physical therapy device, all inclusive. Um, EMS massage, heat, tense, cold. And oh, isn't there? I thought they had more info on their site. Oh, I guess they don't. Anyways, that's the real product right there. Like, this is what it ended up looking at. So my design literally came out pixel for pixel. The only difference was instead of using that 3-piece patch, we ended up using a rectangular patch because that just made more engineering sense. So that's another thing with my field, and I think most fields, is that sometimes what you want is different from what's possible, at least in the early stages of a prototype. Um, but this came out 99, almost 99% the way I thought it's out. And just to give myself small credit, it's mostly because of how much experience I have in the field. Um, but I would say don't get discouraged if you have an idea in your head and it doesn't come out exactly as you think it. That's part of the process too. Sometimes the first prototype is supposed to look like shit. It's not supposed to be perfect. Yeah.
Interesting. Um, let's just do a quick check-in. How we all doing? How are we enjoying the session? Please leave some comments, and we have passed the 1 hour mark, right? So we should start getting ready to slow down. So start getting your questions ready so that in the next
Please.
few minutes, yeah, we can start asking FK some questions. But so far, I'm learning so much. I have some questions for you, Sha, from my own end. Can you tell me like some, because now there not everybody is going to be like a industrial designer, so like
Yeah, yeah, definitely not.
in the design economy, right? Can you tell us some roles where some people can start to like pursue? So if there's somebody on this space right now that has a vision of bringing products to life.
Okay, so let me start by saying that please, but for God's sake, do not become an industrial designer. I beg you in the name of God. Please.
After everything you've told us today, why
I
do you
know,
think
right?
it's too
It's
late?
a thankless profession. Um, I think knowing what I know now, I would definitely have gone to school for it for 4 years, and I've done like a 1 or 2 year degree. Let me start off by saying that anything worth doing education wise, you need only 1 year to try and master it and see if that's the thing you really want to do. Um, and a good example is some of our brothers and sisters in UX, UI, and coding. I don't think I've met anybody who went to 4 year school for coding. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Um, if you're going to get the grasp of it, you're going to get the grasp of it in 1 year. And Andela has proven this theory right. Um, it's all about repetitiveness, right? So to answer GZ's questions, right? These are sort of like I'll say top 5 career paths if you're trying to get into sort of this hardware engineering space. Um, the first right now at the very top of my list is AI and machine learning. This is something I'm going into very soon. So catch you outside. Um, Number 2 is understanding what's called mechatronics engineering. So these are people that do a lot of like IoT connected devices
Or
stuff.
that sounds like some Iron Man shit, bro. Can you say that again?
Mechatronics engineering is not as crazy as it sounds. It's also sometimes called systems embed engineering. So mechatronics, system embed, these are fantastic fields to get into. Um, then there is IoT engineering, which still relates to the last two that I mentioned. And then last but not least, is um, mechanical design engineering. Now, there's two parts to come into from mechanical design engineering. There's the point of view of learning how to use software. So the software being Rhino, SolidWorks, Gravity, Sketch. These are sort of like the three top ones I recommend. Rhino, Gravity, Sketch, SolidWorks. Um, they are sort of the brother and sister or cousins to Revit, 3ds Max, and Blender. So all these softwares have similar like coding principles in terms of how they're built, but they have very different outputs because Revit 3ds Max is for buildings and Blender is for I would say animation or character design, and SolidWorks, Rhino, and Gravity Sketch are for sort of like hardware products, functional products, semi-functional products. Then there's other broader fields within the industry. Um, I always give advice, GC. I always say, pick a company that you are interested in working for. Go to their jobs section, see the jobs that they're hiring for. So, for example, say you're interested in hardware, right? Go to Apple, go to Apple's jobs page. Just look at available jobs. Go to engineering. Look at all the roles there. You figure out what you need to be doing with your life, what you need to be learning. Don't listen.
That's a life hack.
Yeah, that's a life hack. Very serious life hack. Don't listen to me. You say you want to work for Facebook, go on Facebook, go to jobs, go and look at what they are hiring for. Then you understand what you need to be doing. So at least for hardware, I can speak on this. Like, you need to understand all the different skill sets because, like I mentioned earlier, what goes into making this is more than just industrial designers. There's a system embedded engineer. There's a mechatronics. No, there's no mechatronics. There's no movement. There is definitely IoT engineering because this connects to Bluetooth on your phone. There should be, obviously, there's 3D design engineering, people that understand fabrication and making molds. You just have to find something that you're interested in, semi-interested in, and start to learn about it. If it takes you more than a year to get the grasp of it, move to something else. And no knowledge is wasted knowledge, by the way. No knowledge is wasted knowledge. Whatever you learn is still important in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, these are sort of my top 5 jobs. Please run away from industrial design. Don't do it.
All right, guys, you heard it. I think the thing that actually stood out to me was like find the companies that are doing the best things in the world and see who they hire. And not only that, see what they're doing because like a lot of times these guys are earlier than the public, right? And the technology that often gets released sometimes is technology that they've been working on for the last 5 years, right? So if you want to know what to focus on the next few years of your life, go and look at what people are doing right now, like the things that have come out. So I'm definitely going to be doing that, not just for jobs, but to get ideas as well.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Does anybody have questions for FK? I think we can go straight into questions now for maybe another 20 minutes, and then we can let FK go. He's
Actually,
really
let me show
answering
one more
questions.
project before we go into.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is actually a very, 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 very interesting project for me because it's one of my big interest. It was one of my big um, interest areas in the last, I'd say, 3 years of moving to the UK. I started getting more and more interested in NFTs, but I wanted to come at NFTs from a hardware design perspective. So I designed something for a friend and a client. Um, you know what? We'll go directly to his website. He has a much better presentation there. So this is just to show you how, like, because you have one certain area that you've been working on, does not mean that you can't pivot to another completely different field. Okay, if I share this screen, I just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. This is the right screen to share. So we did this project in two parts. Um, I'm going
We can't see your screen yet, FK.
I know. I'm trying to
Oh,
pull
okay,
it
okay.
up. I'm giving some preamble. So we did this project in two parts. The first part actually started off funny. My life is funny. It started off sort of conceptually. Um, my friend Ken, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Martel wants to do a activation with me as an artist, but he said he didn't want to just pose with a bottle of Martel." And at the time, Ken and I were rubbing ideas back and forth about how to take his art into the physical realm through the digital realm, right? So I was like, so it's something called Phygital, um, Phygital. So that's where physical and digital products intersect, which is what my career actually, funny enough, is. It's a digital career because as a designer, I first start by sketching on paper, doing a 3D, and then that 3D becomes real life. But I realized that a lot of people in the NFT space were stopping. There's a lag from my end. Is there a lag from my end?
Sounds good to me. But there's usually like a delay for the people on stage. I think about 4 seconds. But there's nothing we can do
Okay,
about that. It's a platform.
no hala. So when I approached Ken, funny enough, I met Ken in one of his gallery exhibitions in London. Complete stranger to me, walked up to him and said, "Hey man, I have this idea for digital projects, and I think your art would be great for it." So anybody that knows Ken, great. If you don't, fantastic artist. And this was the project. Oh no, wait, hold on. I had it right before, then I fucked it up. Let me do that again. So this was the first project we did with Martel. This is this is just an NFT at the moment, but Martel is actually in talks with the artists to see how they can make it real. So the concept I came up with for Martel was Ken paints these boxes, and I was like, let's turn these boxes into a character, and that character will be like a bartender. And we called it, the Martel Migrants. He goes around place to place, sharing Martel with all kinds of people, different colors, races, ethnicities, whatever. But at the end of the day, we're all sharing Martel, right? So now it's difficult to sort of say what this is in my field. In any field, really, what do you call this? It's not a toy, it's not a shoe, it's not a car, it's not a piece of hardware. And that's the beauty of going through different verticals. Because it's not even an NFT, it's more so a conversational piece. And then we took it one step further. When Martel saw this, Martel was like, we need to make an animation. So Ken reached out to an animator, and I'm going to play a video for you guys. You should still be seeing the screen. And this was the video that was created, posted on Martel's page. So I didn't create this animation, but I created the character. My point is, from walking up to an artist in a gallery, this is how I have Martel as one of my clients today. And it really all just started from me thinking outside the box and saying I wanted to work with artists. And that was a very specific thing I said to myself last year. I said, I want to work with artists because I think a lot of artists don't take full advantage of turning their works into digital products. Um, so this is part two of the project, which is, really fucking amazing. So after we did that, a gallery in the US reached out to us via Art Basel Miami, I think almost everyone should know Art Basel. And we created a migrant, 15-foot tall, made of aluminum, steel, and 3D printed plastic. Not only was this project like literally one of the most like intense projects I've done recently, but it's also stole the show at Scope Miami. Um, Scope paid for the entire fabrication, which was about give or take like about 20, $30,000, right? And I'm just gonna play a video. And I did all of the design engineering for this.
I'm just grateful and honored to be working on something like this with an amazing team, an amazing crew, a wonderful curator. I couldn't ask for anything better. The scale, the impact, it was necessary because migration has become a very huge and important topic in our everyday life. I am a migrant, you are a migrant, we are all migrants. This was a big project not only for me, but for everyone who has come far and wide from different places around the world. And I am just really blessed to be able to show this work in Scoop Miami.
More, my mind is blown. Like, I think I speak for a lot of
It's
people here
wild,
as
right?
well.
Because this project was um, started off very conceptual. I sat with the artist and we came up with a character because that was the approach I took with him. I said we need to create a character from these paintings. If you saw in that video, he has these boxes that he creates. That's the
To be able
right. And I said to him, what if these boxes could become a character? We went through a bunch of different designs, but ultimately we both agreed to settle on something with just legs and on a sneaker. And then, let me touch on this sneaker a little bit. Can anyone guess like why this sneaker really quickly before I answer?
Because All Stars, Converse All Stars, we're All Stars.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wanted to leave the shoe open to a collaboration sometime in the future. And I said it here first. We're going to work with Converse. I don't know how, but we're going to work with Converse. And
Put
that's
it
and
out
that's
there,
the thing
bro.
with designing is you need to think outside of more than just yourself. You think about the potential collaborations you can have because you can't do everything alone. You can't. You have to work with other people. Without Ken, this project wouldn't exist. Without me, this project wouldn't exist. Without Scope Miami, without Roger, the curator. So just on this one project alone was, 6, 7 of us, plus the fabricators in Miami. Um, so you have to understand that it takes like a whole village to do projects of this scale, projects of this magnitude. Um, okay, our other project we worked on is not currently not on here, but I won't go into details about it because we took it down for a reason. Yeah, took it down. Okay. So yeah, I think that's about it before um, question answer segment.
Yeah, that was very stimulating. Yeah, I'm definitely fired up. Feel free if you feel like there's anything else you want to show or anything, if you just want to run through your mind to see if you missed anything. We are actually still here for another like 40 minutes. But if not, then we can get straight to the questions. But me, I want to see more, and I think other people too. They want to see as well.
Okay,
So please
I
show
just
us.
want to show maybe one more thing before.
Fire down, fire down.
All right, let me. Wait, what are you guys seeing right now? You seeing? Okay, I can see what you're seeing.
Yeah, we're still seeing the migrant.
Same thing. Okay. Um, okay, I think maybe something more recent would not be a bad idea. Something more recent. Okay, I know what to show you guys. Yes. So I think last but not least, I'm just gonna make a little divergence into something a bit more, I would say, personal as a personal project. So something just more like artistic that I've been exploring, and this is just to let you know that like because you start off in one field does not mean that that's where you're going to die. Um, you can also explore other areas within it. So this is sort of my. So I'm going to start sharing the screen. This is my one of my passion points what I just started to explore, which is sculpture. But I approached it as a design engineer. So I created these sculptures, which are also chess pieces, from um, a 3D software. My plan from this point is to 3D print them, and from 3D printing to also make real sculptures of them and possibly chess pieces. Each sculpture is supposed to be inspired by a Nigerian, um, someone from Nigerian history, and also just sort of be a metaphor for like, I would say maybe African superheroes, African super characters. Now, my design process and all of this was very, very rough. No matter how clean these renders ended up looking, I did a lot of experimenting, a lot of back and forth. And I recently submitted this whole entire project for a grant. Because, which is another thing you guys need to learn about grants. Grants, if you don't know now, there's people that live their entire artistic, creative career off of grants. Start Googling grants because they're out there, they exist. If you have good ideas, there's always somebody willing to give you a grant for it. Um, as long as you process these ideas properly. And I'm glad I'm ending this whole, session with this because it's it has very little to do with tech, but it is actually built completely on tech because I believe that anything we want to do moving forward in the creative industry has to have tech in it. Um, Even if the product in and of itself is not a fintech product. One of the greatest injustices to the word tech is that people see it as just guys that are building the next neobank for like 10 people. Tech can be used in everything. Right now, there's fashion tech, there's health tech, civic tech, food tech, med tech. Um, the list goes on and on and on and on. You can literally put tech behind anything. Um, as long as you understand the tools and devices you can use to like elevate that sector with tech. Okay, that's about it for now.
Amazing, bro. Incredible. And I agree with you on that, right? I don't even think that is an option anymore. I think like we're at the point tech is as important as electricity. Like you need it to power everything. This conversation that we're having here is impossible because everybody here is in different parts of the world, right? Without technology, how are we gonna like you probably would have never been able to communicate with FK. Maybe you send a DM and you reply next year. But technology technology helps us, brings us together, helps us, function and just take our ideas out there. So incredible. I really love these chess pieces and what you said struck out to me. The thing about like African super characters, because like growing up, I know that like I was inspired by Western culture a lot, right? Growing up, just because of the
Mhm.
films I watched, the cartoons, the things that were available to me. There was no high quality African super character that was available to me, except Super Strikers, right? And Super Strikers was, it was a book. It was not very, very immersive as opposed to the other types of media. So
Yeah,
I think that we're going to see an amazing future just in terms of
definitely.
what
Not
we
even
can
future, bro,
create.
present.
Yep, yep. At least for our kids, right? For those of
Oh
us
yeah,
that
yeah,
will
yeah,
have
yeah,
kids.
definitely for our kids,
Yeah,
for sure.
like wouldn't it be great to have your kid playing a Nigerian video game or an Indian video game or a Somalian video game? Everything doesn't have to be influenced by, the West because we do have a lot of stories to tell. So
Exactly,
people
and
like
that's one of
you.
the biggest things that inspired me, like around creating this series, because I was like, I wanted to create something inherently African, but also that had roots in, you know, using tech to elevate it, something that everyone could get behind and grasp. Just like you said, all of us here definitely watch anime or have watched anime. And Japanese people make that in their language and with 99% of the characters in their image, right? So it's just like, what is in our image? The theory, if you look at the art project, I call it the Benin Gambit, and it talks about just like how colonialism has like taken so much from us, but then what are we what have we taken from it? And for me, it's like, okay, technology exposure, and then how can we use that to our own advantage to tell our own stories?
Beautiful narrative. All right, let's jump into some questions. We start some questions. So we have KD. KD says he's a dev and is building robots using Arduino and C as, oh my God, please, if you can you explain what language this guy is speaking?
Okay,
Thank you.
so no, I understand what he's saying, but what he's asking me is he would like to get my audience. Stuff. How was it like for you? Oh, right, right. Before I get my audience. Okay. So I think one of the key things, I will actually talk about somebody who's in your field but very much further along. The important thing with building an audience is building products that excite people. That's the most important thing. The very early parts of my career, from even pre-career, which would be like 17 to 21, all I did was just do things that I knew would excite people. And that takes a little bit of finessing. What I mean by finessing is, I'm sure you open Instagram sometimes and you see this. There's this 3D artist I really like. His name is Linka Art. I've seen him on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and he makes these little animations of like Davido, Whiskey, Thames, um, Burna Boy. He has this style he uses. So he's used pop culture to create these animated characters, and then he's used that to gain a following. So whatever you create, you need to make sure that like it can excite people. Sometimes it doesn't have to be super functional, but it needs to excite something in people. And then another thing is look up to the people above you, like the people doing things in your field. What are they doing? Replicate some of the products that they built. Because there's this very silly logic that you need to be original. You don't. You don't need to be original. Good artists copy, great artists steal. Copy with your full chest, but steal with your entire being. Because one of the starting points for creativity, for creating, is to do what other people are doing. Because that at least gets you in the door and helps you um, be more relatable. Also, work on things you like, work on things you believe in, solve problems you think should be solved. Um, Sometimes it doesn't need to be as big as like bringing lights to Nigeria, but those things are too big, even for me. So start with something at home, something in your mom's shop, something in your sister's crib, and create around that. Yeah, and post it, present it properly. Um, I have to give props to our tech review guys in Nigeria. They have come a very fucking long way from where they were like 7 years ago. Those tech videos back then were god awful, but now, we are almost on par with our counterparts in the UK and the US. Kagan, people like Kagan, people like Fisayo, you know. So you have to make sure you're presenting at a quality that makes sense, because Human beings eat with their eyes first before they do with their ears. So there's so much information on the internet. How are you creating information that is stimulating and gets people going? Like I have, for example, I have my style of rendering, which is animating on a black background and making the image spin. Why do I do that? Because it makes the image appear to be in um, sort of gives you this three-dimensional 3D glasses type of look. So when people see these videos, it immediately captures them because it seems like the image is coming at the screen, coming out of the screen at you. So that was my thing that I learned, and I found my thing, and I use that. I've seen even other people copy that from it too, and I love it because it solidifies like that. Oh yeah, I came up with a good idea and like a way to present ideas, and I copied this from one Oyibo guy too, long time ago. So yeah, man, copy people, do shit that excites you, present your work properly.
Awesome answer. Great work. I think another question from Amazing Grace. How can I use some of your principles in fashion design?
Perfect question. Good question. I can answer this very very well because I have a lot of people. My circle are in this fashion space, and I've put some people onto to technology. So there's three softwares you need to learn at the moment. The first is called Clo 3D. It takes fashion clothing patterns into a 3D space, so you can make 3D versions of your designs. Clo, CLO. No, there's no NE. CLO 3D. Um, and then there's also Gravity Sketch. Really, I will keep talking about Gravity Sketch today at the end. You need to learn, if you're in the fashion space and you do not know how to make bags and shoes in 3D, you are joking, you are a joker. You need to understand how to make accessories, fashion accessories in 3D. That's watches, bags, glasses, and all of that stuff. Um, and then the third software I would really, really highly recommend is um, Blender. So Blender also helps you create organic forms in um, 3D for the fashion space. Then I would say a fourth thing is not really in terms of like the software, it's more in the understanding of how things are made. So as a fashion designer or someone in the fashion space, you need to understand how every single piece of fashion equipment or fashion product is made. Clothing is not the only thing in fashion. Go on YouTube, watch videos. One thing I did was I went to learn how shoes were made from scratch because I used to design sneakers, or I still do. Why did I go learn how sneakers are made or shoes are made when I could have just stuck to the design part? Because understanding how something is made helps you become a better designer. And how-to videos are fantastic. Sometimes just watching how people make a shoe, really, like, it is some fascinating shit. Oh shit, last but not least, 3D printing. You need to understand 3D printing. If you just Google 3D printed shoes or 3D printed company, it's called Zellerfield. Um, so yes, learn about 3D printing. 3D printing is a fantastic tool. Um, there's no particular software I can put in mind, but definitely the fashion world is now fashion tech. It's no longer fashion design. Um, so if you just literally Google fashion tech, learn, take in information, follow leaders in the field, and yes, these guys will give you pure insights on what to do, how to go, where the industry is heading.
Great. That's a good pathway. So look into the software to create 3D fashion because everything now is like 3D. Like FK said, you feed with your eyes before any other of your senses. So before people wear your clothes, I guess they have to see it and fall in love with it. And the picture is not enough anymore. And learn how the fashion industry works and look into fashion tech. All right, next question. What advice would you give for a startup in the hardware tech industry in Nigeria? It's a very general question, so.
Yeah, very general. So I have mixed reviews on this question. So I'll give the first answer. You're in the wrong place. But the reason I say I have mixed reviews is because I just saw a company like 3 weeks ago because of research we were doing here. My co-founder actually found it, and he's not Nigerian. It's called Ready HQ. Brilliant guy, creating, and Ready is spelled REEDDIHQ. So Ready is literally copying what I did at Jazza. Brilliant. I mean, I give it up to him. And he's done it in a much better way than the way Jazza is proposing. Um, so I'm on the fence with hardware in Nigeria. On one hand, I would say like leave the country. I know it's easier said than done. But on the other hand, I use Ready as an example because if you find a pain point, um, you will excel. But finding pain points is so difficult. And more importantly, after finding pain points, scaling with those pain points is extremely difficult. So apart from Ready, the other company I can speak on is Home Fort Energy. Home Fort Energy makes gas meters, smart meters. And the founder is a very brilliant guy. Not his first business, by the way, in this hard tech space. So advice, be ready to fail, but you fail forward. Um, Hardware is difficult to scale hardware in a country where there's no manufacturing and there's no cost of electricity. So maybe these are the 2 points to think at, like look at the problem of why hardware isn't scaling and solve problems there first. But if you do want to, is that how you spell Home Fort Africa? Oh, okay. I thought there was an E at the end of the Home Fort Africa. Anyways, right now there's medtech companies, there's femtech, there's in this hardware space, anyways, there's clean tech. So you need to understand what can scale very quickly, and yeah, be ready to fail. That's it. I'm not gonna bullshit you.
Yeah, I agree with you. FK said Japa leaves Nigeria, so I was not the one that said it. But jokes aside, I think like obviously
Sorry,
one
one
of the
last thing. I'm
problems.
so sorry. I literally forgot one last
Shoot.
thing. If you have a good idea, pitch it to a much larger company than you. That has worked sometimes in the past for me. Most times it ends in tears, but try your luck.
Perfect. Yeah, to add to that, I would say also look at what other people are doing outside Nigeria, and when I say outside Nigeria, I mean within the continent of Africa.
Yes,
And the
within
reason
the
I'm saying
continent
that,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, we have a lot of shared problems with a lot of our neighbors. Like, so you have East Africans, you have people in Rwanda and different places, and sometimes, like, obviously there are places where some of us are doing better than the others, but we do have some kind of common struggle. So it's easy to find problems that can be solved within your climate, by looking outside. I think one of the best examples I can give, and they're one of my favorite companies. They're called Zipline. Zipline is maybe
Yes.
6 or 7 years old. Yeah, their first product was very mechanical in terms of what it was. It was a drone that delivered blood. They literally had to catch it with like a catapult every single time, but it worked and they had no crashes or casualties. But 5 years later now, they are building another product which is for an entirely different market, right? The US market, which is drone
Autonomous
deliveries.
logistics. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Drone deliveries,
Well, it's
autonomous
crazy that a
logistics.
company that started in Africa delivering blood pivoted to delivering packages in the US. So some people think that if you start you solve a problem in Africa, you can't like pivot that product outside, and it's really one of the most intelligent things I hear from people because it just shows that they don't think locally when they're and local, by the way, it's global and local combined. So you need to think locally when you're developing products because if you develop a product really well, you can make it do anything. And I'm glad you gave the example of Zipline. That's such a good example. I have
I
an
love
even
them.
better.
Please
Um,
shoot.
okay, so GE was trying to create affordable ultrasound scans for um, the African market. So essentially, the product they created was a device that connected directly to your phone. Um, Craziest thing happened. The largest, so it was Nigeria and India they created it for. The largest buyers of the product ended up being stay like new mothers in the US who wanted to just like for fun buy the product for themselves. So a product they ended up creating for like I guess developing nations ended up being one of the highest selling products in the US. And you see that's the brilliant thing about innovation. It's like you innovate properly, you actually touch an entire market, like back and front.
Perfect. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, we have one more. What's your take on agricultural technology? Is it
Agritech,
scalable?
fantastic. Yeah, agritech is my favorite part of hardware tech, especially when it comes to Africa. If you crack a good problem, there's a lot of funding for agritech. Bill and Melinda Gates has funding, and then just generally just Google the agri-tech funding for Africa is insane right now. So if you build a good enough idea, and please, for God's sakes, no drones, please, no drones. Should I give you free insights? And this is literally what I'm working on right now: food waste. If you can solve food waste from farms, you will get people to fund you, and you can build a prototype. I'm not going to go into more details on that because I'm just giving you a free expo. But yeah, solve food waste on farms with agri-tech, either by, okay, I'll give you a small expo, either by upcycling, transportation, transportation and storage, or just like general sort of like using AI to monitor. And robotics is too far for Africa, but AI to monitor storage and logistics, upcycling, and or and it's also in addition to upcycling, um, converting. So it would shock you to learn that tomato is the highest imported product in Nigeria and also the highest created product produce in Nigeria. Why is it the highest imported? Because the tomato that we are producing en masse actually just ends up spoiling because nobody converts it to tomato. So this random white lady came to Nigeria and started a company called Tomato Joss. And I kid you not, has raised millions of dollars and pounds and euros in VC funding to build a tomato farm and factory in Jos. So yes, agri-tech, there's money. You just need to be ready. And most of it is in the north, just FYI. One solution free of charge I'm giving you right now, vertical farms. If you can build a vertical farm company in Nigeria, you will get investment. Whoever
Let me
listens
add
now,
let me add some alpha as well. And this is from my own personal experience. So I recently moved to the UK like 3 months ago, and I find it very expensive to buy like I'll tell you this, and six balls of tomatoes, like from your regular department store, like Sainsbury's or anything, is like £4, which is like 4,000 naira in Niger, right in Nigeria. Imagine 4,000 naira worth of tomatoes when you go to a market in Lagos. So I realized that there is actually a market for produces in international because the UK doesn't produce any
it
tomatoes.
doesn't
Obviously
make
they
a
do, but
single coin.
they
Yeah.
don't have anything,
Pepper,
right? So
tomato, all of that is imported from Senegal. It's imported from Ghana. It's imported from, yeah, not Nigeria
yes,
though. Nigeria somehow hasn't cracked that nut
that's
for
what I was gonna
exporting.
say. So there's an abundance of food in Nigeria, right? And it's cheap as hell. So if you can solve a way to bring some of and the problem with that is that these goods are perishable, right? So if you can figure out the
Yes,
supply
only person.
chain. Yeah, if you can find a way
Yeah.
to get fresh food instantly as an export to other countries, if you can crack that, I think there's a huge market there because I know a
So
lot of people, especially immigrants, would rather eat fresh food that tastes like, what they're used to back home. Because like even if you say you want to buy it from your local farmers here, there's a taste difference. So I wanted to look into that, but I honestly just don't have time. So if you're really into food tech, agri tech, maybe it's not so much about the technology that creates it, but more about the technology that creates the supply and the logistics. So think about that. There might be a solution there. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think we're running out of time. I have some questions for you, FK. So clearly
Sure.
you're very knowledgeable, you're brilliant, right? And I know how the
I
human brain
just
works,
saw a
right?
question pop up, but then it disappeared.
Which one was it? Oh, okay. Funfere, are you a VC?
Come on, guys,
Ah,
come on. Yes, I am inside a VC studio like this. I'm begging them for money. Hold on. See my accounts, they're outside. Can you wait? Can you see them there? Antler. They are there on the wall. So please, even me, they find money. So no, I'm
you
not a
heard
VC,
it.
but I can give you a long list of VCs to apply to. I applied to Antler from my house, no man, no man, and I got in. And I'm here begging them for money. They've not given me yet, though.
Yeah, and beyond VCs, like I think he said earlier as well, grants. There's so much free money,
There's
and
one.
I don't know why
There's a
people
lot
just
of
don't.
grants. No, really, like I know people from Nigeria that have won £20,000 grants on ideas. There's grants. You need to go Bill and Melinda Gates. I know someone who's in the UK right now who won what's called a Royal Academy of Science grant for building cribs, affordable incubator cribs for premature children in Nigeria. There's grants. If you have a good idea, there's a grant. If you don't get the grant, your idea is not good enough. I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but if your idea is not good, it's just not good. Oh, Founders Factory Africa. Anyone here that's really interested in getting into this sort of VC space of getting funded, Founders Space, Founders Factory Africa. There's also Antler Africa, by the way. Antler has a location in Africa. Those are the two solid British African-based VCs. Any other questions before GZ asks his?
So yeah, guys, if you have questions, please just drop them in the comments. We want to hear from as many people as possible, rather. So please drop your questions. Okay, while we type, I want to ask you, right? So I know that obviously you went to school, you're very educated, you learned a lot. But I don't want to believe that that's where all the knowledge that you have is coming from. So can you tell us about how you approach learning, right? That's the first question. The second
Right, that's
question is like, what other habits do you have that you think that we can employ? Because like I realize that not a lot of people share their secret sources, and obviously, understandably so, right? Because people work hard to get
I
certain
might
things.
be like, see, I'm not down for anything and I'm not a teller, right? So I don't have much of a secret sauce to share. Um, Anyone that's listening to this right now, if you have any like plans to go to one seminar on how to make money, cancel it because none of those people is Elon Musk. To today, you'll never see Elon Musk set up a seminar on how to be a billionaire. But what I can tell you is how to progress in your career. Number one is school has absolutely my knowledge. School accounts for only about 10% of my knowledge. The remaining 90% is from reading fucking books. And I'm saying this with so much conviction because my God, I've never seen a generation of people like millennials and Gen Z that do not read. See, Malcolm X had this quote where he said, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. My God, and it's so true. Read a book, read articles. I read so much. Sometimes I'm up to 3 a.m. Read everything, read anything. And if you have a passion point, know everything about this because I don't understand how you tell me you are a UX UI designer and you do not know some of the leaders in the fields, the people that started it, the difference between the terms, how there's even all kinds of things within it. Like you have to read. There's no way around it. You have to read. Um, People don't read. I'm really upset about this, lack of reading thing. And then another thing is habits, right? Habits, like you asked. You need to have hobbies, and you need to have hobbies you take seriously. And I'm talking about things you do outside of making money. the thing in Nigeria is, oh yeah, anything that you can do, turn into a business. Not necessarily. I believe that you need to separate. Oh wow. Okay, just reminded me. So there's something called an ikigai. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, ikigai. Sorry, ikigai is a Japanese. Would I call it a Japanese charting system for figuring out your life, right? And it is one of the most important things you will ever do. If you I'm gonna type it here just so that Kemi can add it maybe to the public. So right now, today, I kid you not, find your ikigai. Today, after this, chart it. So ikigai is what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you are good at. You need to separate all these four things. Then you need to do all of them on an almost daily basis. And that's going to help you become a much more rounded person. I'm not here to talk to you about wealth. I really don't give a fuck about wealth. I'm here to talk to you about fulfillment. I'm here to talk to you about like, or at least give you insights into finding your place in the world. If you can figure out your ikigai, that'll be a fantastic thing. Habits for successful people sometimes start with very little things. For example, I run every day, and I try to make sure that no matter what time I get home, I do that run. Even if I don't do that run, I make sure that I walk. Even if I don't do that walk, I just make sure that I do something, ride a bicycle, because this is something that does absolutely nothing to make me money, but it's just something that I do, and I make sure that I do on a daily basis to like have a habit that I formed and I keep doing every day repetitively. The problem with most people that I've come to learn is they do not know how to do the same thing every day for the rest of their lives. That one day they miss is they don't realize how dangerous that is. And because one day turns to two, and two turns to 20, and 20 turns to 2000. And I think last but not least, in terms of like, because we have 7 more minutes, one of the like really important things that I would advise, and some of you might take this the wrong way, but you need to rebel a little bit. Rebelling is so fantastic. Um, Whatever you have been taught is usually nonsense, especially that Nigerian. Pastors, politicians, come on, those are some of the dumbest people on earth. Don't listen to them, please. I just got to beg you. Don't listen to all these podcasts by all these prostitutes. Please. Um, Listen to other people. People that you don't necessarily agree with or you think you might not agree with. Listen to them. Just like tap into new streams of logic. I beg you, tap into new streams of understanding. Because if you physically cannot go to the top of a mountain in Japan, your brain can just via the internet. Listen to teachings by monks. These videos are readily available on YouTube. It'll shock you how, like, just for example, I listen to opera music every day. Even though, yes, I like, Zlatan, Zanku, but sometimes, not every time leg walk, sometimes you listen to some Tibetan, meditation music. It opens your mind up to understand that you're not the only fucking person on earth. Yeah, rebel. Your mind, not just in your actions, but in your mind, like break the mold. Be the opposite of who you were raised to be. It helps. But not too far shy where you want to become an arm robber or something silly like that. I'm
They
not
say it's FK that told them. Oh.
I say, I beg.
Amazing. So yeah, I think a lot of what FK has said is something we've been hearing, but in different ways from everybody who has graced this stage. And obviously, what they all share in common is that they are great at what they do. So find a way to be divergent, be a rebel, especially if you come from Africa, because there are so many problems. But the reason why we're hosting spaces like this, the reason why we're creating platforms like this is to have people to break, have people break the mold, like FK has said. Because if we all keep doing the same thing, like we're gonna end up how we've been in the last decade, and we need people to inspire others by actions, and that's why we're here. So that's definitely amazing. Thank you guys for pulling up. We have a few minutes left, so FK, appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this. I know you're a busy man, and the information you've dropped here is priceless. I can definitely say that. It's been helpful to me, and I'm sure I can say the same for everybody else. I'm just gonna do a quick like rundown of everything I've learned from what you've said. I think the most important things that stood out to me was, first of all, you have to find your passion early, right? And thankfully, a lot of us here are still young, right? But to be able to find that passion or that field of passion, you have to experiment with very many different things and find the one that sticks. And even when you do, do not be confined and say that that's what you're going to be for the rest of your life. Be ready to change, be ready to adapt,
You went
be
to
ready
your
to,
mind. But
yeah, be ready to
don't change your
experiment.
mind because it's just like that. You know that crypto time where everyone was shouting, "I'm a trader, I'm a trader." Please, for God's sake, not that kind of mind thing. Those people are the worst people on earth. Fucking
Yeah, and be very mindful of the type of information you consume as well. In fact, if you're listening and watching what everybody is watching, then there's
then
something
the
wrong.
problem exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially those podcasts where the microphones are like hanging from one corner.
FK, if you want to call names, call names. Don't be dancing
Those are
around. Don't be dancing around corner.
getting information. I beg you.
Yeah, and you need to be dedicated in your craft. Don't be unserious, right? Like that's something FK always says, like this person's unserious. Don't be unserious because there's an importance to being dedicated. You have to be dedicated. You need to put the time in, you need to put the work in. You need to even
And please,
believe.
because I want to step away for a second, don't let
Yeah.
your motivation be money. Don't say because I'm not making money, my craft is not paying off. That's yes, I know. Like in Nigeria, we've been raised with hustle. Though I hate that fucking term, hustle. Though. Like for me, when I think hustle in the American way of hustle, which is like do it the hardest, like go the hardest, run the farthest, but not hustle in terms of like everything about money. Like because once you do that, you will change your mind too often, and then you just be trying to be a jack of all trades. And by the way, that quote says a jack of all trades is a master of none, right? Because most people just want to. I remember 10 years ago it was oil and gas, right? Today is tech. Maybe tech isn't your thing. Maybe it is. But my point is that don't let the reason you get into tech because one idiot on Twitter said it makes 100K. Where is it making it?
There you had it. Well, that's that. We're wrapping up in 60 seconds. So thank you, FK. We'll see you around. Appreciate you. And I just want to wish you the best in everything you're doing. You're already, doing great. You deserve everything that's coming your way because you're hustling in obviously the positive way. So we'll definitely be looking out for your stuff. I'm sure everybody here is
Amen.
gonna find you. We'll share your socials, share your LinkedIn, and get everybody to connect with you. So
For
thank you so
sure.
much. Everybody else who's here, thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying for the last 2 hours. It really didn't feel like 2 hours. That means it was
Yeah,
a
that
fine
was a great
session.
session. You guys took 2 hours away from my work, but it was good.
Haha. All good. But let's come back here again tomorrow. Tomorrow we have Sultan who's going to be teaching us about creative writing, content writing as well, which is one of the most important skills right now. Because if you cannot communicate properly, like you're already 10 steps behind. So we're going to learn all about that tomorrow here at the same time. Have a good night, everybody. Let's jam on the Telegram, on the Discord, and if you have any questions for me or for FK, we will try to get them across to him some other time and get some feedback. I also want to say, like, I think for sure season two is definitely gonna be happening. I don't want to talk too much about it yet, but I have the vision of what next season should be, and I'm gonna take it to the team and see what they think about it. But this session really like spawned an idea in our minds, and I can't wait to explore that. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you for showing up. It's after hours, and we'll be here again for the next week. Good night, guys. Ending the broadcast now.